Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and our continuing series, the Unported Playlist, where I take out some of my favorite unported arcade games of all time, and we're right in the middle of Unported Hall of Fame, where I've looked back at some of the earliest videos on the channel at unported arcade games that I think are some of my favorite of all time, and today we're going to be playing Dolphin Blue via the Atomiswave. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor and go down below, hit like and subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But the last time I talked about this game, it was available on absolutely nothing but the arcade board, and now technically it does run on the Dreamcast, but it's an unofficial port, so this remains unported to any home console as far as a mainline release is concerned. And I absolutely love this game. If you can't tell off the top, it's basically Metal Slug, except in a completely different universe, with some shades of Contra as well. But this game came out in 2003, which was pretty late for this genre. Basically only Metal Slug was currently on the market in arcades, and it's an interesting release for Sammy. Now I will say Sammy as a developer, definite B tier, but the best game I think they ever made 100% is going to be Dolphin Blue. It has absolutely everything you're going to want in a run and gun game if you're into the genre. It's got an awesome graphical styling, it is hard as nails, and it is addictively fun. And I will say right off the bat, I love what they do with the graphical stylings. 99% of this game is in full 3D with that Dreamcast look because Atomiswave was just a Dreamcast in a different form. But from there, the 2D sprites also look spectacular. I think it's one of the best marriages of 3D to 2D I've seen on a Dreamcast era console. I know that a lot of times Capcom fighting games get talked about in that mix, but I know some people don't love the mix of 2D sprites with 3D backgrounds in those fighting games. But here in Dolphin Blue, I think it looks spectacular. When you shoot these scuba enemies and they explode underwater and their suits blow up, all of the sprites and animations just work. There's not a ton of frames in there, it can be a little bit stilted, but from the comedy aspect, this has the same sense of humor as something like Metal Slug, except with characters that you're not anywhere near as familiar with. And I love how well they transpose the 2D sprites into the 3D. How that dude in his uniform is sitting in the ship looks seamless. But outside of the graphical stylings of Dolphin Blue, the gameplay is the number one most important thing we need to talk about. And I will say, in my opinion, this is done to perfection. It is not an easy game, and sometimes it can feel slightly cheap, but you could say the same thing on occasion about Metal Slug. But the action in this game is just 100% intense from start to finish. There is always something going on, always bullets to avoid, and always enemies to shoot. And that's always just such a fun time when the screen is going wild with everything. But if you haven't noticed already, it's not just called Dolphin Blue because it's fun. You have a helper dolphin that does different things depending on the level you're in. Sometimes he's your companion, sometimes he's your steed, but the dolphin is almost always there in some format or another. And in some slight ways, it kind of feels like Demon Front on the IGS PGM where you have those animal helpers, except the dolphin does a ton more here than in those games. And he's not always there, but when he is, it's like a friend to come to join you in the fight. But like I said, this game, definitely not easy. You will get jammed up sometimes, and the only way to move forward is honestly to probably take that death, because these pillars here, the minute you shoot through them, there's going to be a bullet on the other side. So managing that screen space, navigating the level when you're doing it well, feels spectacular. But you're definitely going to have to learn this game if you want to get better at it. If you just pick it up and play it, you're going to be continuing an absolute metric crap ton. But through subsequent plays, you get better at it. And that's the same thing with something like Contra or Metal Slug or Demon Front. Practice makes perfect. You start learning the enemy patterns. Because like this mini boss right here, you're going to see has 3 cannons. If you go down below and you wait for the 2 at the top to shoot and jump over the 3rd, this boss basically cannot harm you whatsoever. And every single boss is going to be pattern based like that, so it's a learning experience. Just like a shmup, and this game does feel like that in certain spots, the more you practice, the better you get, the more you recognize the patterns, and the easier the game actually becomes, and that sense of learning and accomplishment is great. But it also has an amazing soundtrack, so go ahead and listen, and I'll be right back. The soundtrack just 100% works for the game. It matches the intensity of what's going on screen at any given moment in time. And trust me, this game is intense. When you start a level, it's going to usually ease you in. And I love riding on this dolphin in the minecart level. So many games have minecart levels, but Dolphin Blue changes it up because your minecart actually is a dolphin speeding through the water. And I think it's just kind of fun and a little bit hilarious that you don't actually have a minecart in the minecart level, but it does work. And you'll see there that there is a meter at the bottom left hand of the screen, and I just blew off the dolphin special. When that charges up, the dolphin can do a homing attack, and it basically makes you invulnerable while you're doing it. You definitely want to save that for hard spots because you can get out of a death that you would definitely be taking if you blow off that super at the right time. If you use it at the wrong time, it's basically going to hit absolutely nothing and be 100% wasted. But again, this game is constantly pivoting and showing you something slightly different. The minute that you're done with that fast-paced minecart section where the screen is really scrolling by quickly, the next time you see something, it's going to be moving very slowly. We're still on the dolphin, but it definitely slows itself down, and the pacing of the game does an absolutely incredible job, in my opinion, of making everything work. Jumping with this dolphin here, missing all of those projectiles, and kind of using those windows and openings to make sure that you don't get hit. When you're doing it right, the sense of satisfaction of avoiding that death is 100% spectacular. And when you make a mistake 9 out of 10 times, it's definitely going to be your fault. I will say sometimes the game definitely feels like taking hits is unavoidable, and that might just be that Sammy is not the same type of developer as SNK was when they were doing Metal Slug 1 through 3 with other developers, but honestly it's still extremely good, and sometimes that cheapness might just be down to the game wanting more quarters, because it is an arcade game and you gotta spend some money if you want to see the ending, or else the arcade operators are going to see no profit from it. But I love all the boss battles in this game. They're gigantic spectacles that have multiple stages, because as you first come up on this train here, it's going to open up and there's going to be rockets coming down that you can jump over. But there's going to be multiple stages to this train, and that's what I love so much about the boss fights. There's constantly something new to see and do, and you need to recognize all of the patterns, because as soon as you're done with the missile section, these laser beams are going to come out, and you need to understand what part of the screen is safe and what is dangerous to make sure you can avoid those attacks. But that's what I mean when I say practice makes perfect. The minute you play this boss once, you're going to remember something about it, and on your subsequent playthrough, you're going to know where the safe spots in the screen are. Play it 2 or 3 or 4 times in a row, and suddenly what seemed to be a daunting, almost impossible fight at the beginning is going to feel very easy once you know where everything is going to be. Same exact thing as a bullet hell shmup, same learning curve, and a lot of the patterns in this game feel like they are borrowed whole cloth from shmups like right here. So it's definitely a situation where if you're good or into shmups, this is a game that you're going to 100% enjoy learning as well, because in some instances it provides that same feedback loop. And I love the character portraits in between the levels as well. I think they are very well done artistically. And here's the thing, and I don't mean to dump on Sammy a little bit, but they did make the best games, and their graphics were never the best either. They were always a decent developer, but they were never doing anything spectacular compared to the Capcoms or Namcos or Segas of the world, except for Dolphin Blue. It's like all of the things they had been trying to do finally coalesced in one game, and it is spectacular. Now every once in a while the game's going to ask you to do some platforming, and there's going to be some death pits, and I'm going to tell you right now, that platforming is not good. It's only for like 30 seconds, but be prepared to be annoyed by it. It's maybe the one instance in the game that just feels like it should have been cut, not just for the pacing, but also for the fact that they didn't really get it right. But everything else is just so good. As these 3D models come in with 2D sprites sitting on them, as that battleship is coming into the background, as all of these flame and smoke effects are going on, the marriage of the 3D and 2D just 100% works here. It is really that good, and it's so impressive coming from Sammy, because like I said, they were not a bad developer, but this is better than they had ever done before, and in my opinion, ever done since. But leave me a comment down below if you have an opinion on that, and tell me what your favorite Sammy game is, because they did end up with Sega after a bit, becoming Sega Sammy. But as we move on, again, I just love the pacing of this game. I love the action. I love the backgrounds so that everything is going on at once. You have this beautiful sunset. You have all these planes flying by, all of the water going past you, while you're sitting on a dolphin with a Gatling gun shooting everything. And you will see that the game has different weapons you can use. You can get a Gatling gun, a super Gatling gun, different rocket-based weapons, very similar to Metal Slug, and when you are close to an opponent, you can also knife them as well. So it's definitely borrowing the Metal Slug formula down to the combat and even the intensity, but it does feel like it stands on its own, because by this point in time, Metal Slug in like 2003, 2004, once you get to the later games, was not doing the same thing that Metal Slug 1 through 3 were. So I would say, at least in my opinion, playing this game definitely more fun than playing Metal Slug 4 or 5, and it's just slightly less than something like Metal Slug 1, 2X, or 3. But I just love all the boss fights, and I love that a lot of them are aquatic themed as well. This kind of looks like a little bit of a horseshoe crab underwater, and this definitely 100% feels shmup inspired. I do not know how your character holds his breath for so long, must be part dolphin, but short of that, it just feels so fun to be underwater floating around with a dolphin attacking your opponent for you while you shoot at him like a shmup. And it is a fun design decision, because the minute you're a little bit bored with run and gun, the game pivots and gives you a different feeling genre to participate in, and I do think it breaks the game up nicely, because this is not a short game. It's going to be a 40-minute experience from start to finish. But as we've blown this guy up here, I love all the character they put in the sprites. He just loses clothes and fades away underwater in his underwear. But I'm going to give you one more taste of the soundtrack, because I love it in this level, for about 30 seconds, and I'll come back and close out the video, talk a little bit more about Sammy history and Dolphin Blue. But enjoy, because it's great. I definitely hear some Metal Slug vibes in there, but that's probably because they were obviously inspired by this series. And if imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, Sammy was flattering the ever-loving hell out of SNK when they made Dolphin Blue. But that's not a bad thing, because it's just a damn fun game. I will say the final boss exceedingly hard, and I can never imagine learning this to get to the 1cc status, but I know a lot of people love doing that. If you're looking for a new game to try and you like this genre, I would 100% definitely recommend trying it. I always want to hear how your progress is going. But again, all of the sprite work, the 3D models mixed with the 2D elements, just works here in Dolphin Blue, and I think for its generation, it might be the game that works the best with that marriage of 3D and 2D at the same time. And of course, it's an arcade game. The final boss is always going to have one more phase that you weren't expecting the first time you played the game. And I love that he just blows out of this ship, you jump on your dolphin, and you go into this final battle. But if you've never played Dolphin Blue, you would 100% owe it to yourself to do so. And if you have played it, tell me what you think down below, because I'm curious who's heard of this game, who's played it, and who's planning on playing it after this video. But for my money, it's definitely in my Unported Hall of Fame. Short of that, I'll have another video next Monday. I'll have videos for the week as well, but we are done. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.